Whether you like it or not, your brain does what it's supposed to do. It thinks. So the real issue is not that things happen. The issue is what we do after they happen. And you could even reframe that and say, what and who deserve your time? If I think that things are happening to me, I've learned to say, well, maybe they're happening for me.
Makes sense.
So this is life is unpredictable. Okay. And it's about how to control your responses when everything goes wrong. So in that moment, what does it even mean to say that everything has gone wrong? We know that that's a perception as well. So there's a little bit of a hint of where we're going to go is sometimes even the idea that everything is going wrong and we're trying to navigate that and create, a proper and healthy and supportive, dream supportive, goal supportive, things that matter most supportive way. Maybe the first mistake is that we created a perception that everything's going wrong. So then I wrote this. It says happenings happen, and I'll define what a happening is. But happenings happen, but they don't have to break us, especially if we change the way that we look at them. Isn't that interesting? All right, so let's have some fun. So this is going to be a conversation, by the way, about various topics, and they're really, really hot topics. And I don't know if any of these resonate with you, but we're going to talk about emotional resilience. We're going to talk about mental clarity and obtaining mental clarity. We're going to talk about stress management or even nervous system regulation. What does that mean to you to regulate your nervous system? We're going to talk about nervous system regulation as well as self-regulation, which is kind of the same thing. And we're going to talk about this idea of reaching and obtaining inner peace. Now, when I say inner peace, I don't define what inner peace is. You do. But those are the things that we're going to talk about. And all of these things are going to be accomplished. That's the goal. They're going to be accomplished today by learning to choose what deserves your time and what does not. And you could even reframe that and say, what and who deserve your time and what and who do not. So let's have some fun. So we've all heard of this phrase before. I love this phrase. And I'm wearing my breaking news, I don't care shirt. So just before I get any opinions on that, I'll just tell you that, and it can mean whatever it means to you, but what it means to me when I say breaking news, I don't care, that's a statement to the world. And that is, I don't care about shit that doesn't matter. And I'm the one that decides, just like you are, what matters and what doesn't. We're going to talk about the sorting filter today. So breaking news, I don't care, is just a statement to all of the things and people that have some sort of unsolicited advice that I have not determined yet that carries value, right? Remember, we're going to look to control what comes in and what doesn't today. But that's what it means. It means I do care, but only about shit that matters. So we've all heard of this phrase, shit happens, right? It's actually one of the most popular bumper stickers that was ever created. And then we die, right? Shit happens and then you die. Well, I'm going to look at it a different way today. So what if we look at that idea of shit happens, or life sucks and then you die, and we changed it. We softened it a little bit to a different type of a truth. And that would be life happens and then we die. That's true. That's true. But what happens when we change the way we look at things, but also the way we phrase things, is very, very powerful. So I've found that subtle shift, changing your words, changing the way you look at things, that alone is the first step towards calming the body and the mind and the nervous system. And it also helps reduce things like chronic stress and promoting mental clarity. There's that mental clarity again. It's going to require that we allow ourselves, permit ourselves to change the way that we perceive, to change the meaning of things. Remember, we all have this sense-making machine, and we're all just by nature meaning makers, meaning seekers, meaning makers. We always have to make meaning of things. Today, I'm going to give you permission, or I'm going to give myself permission, and you can follow suit, to not have to give things meaning, and also choose what meaning. So that's kind of like what shit happens means. and we'll go into the happenings and how abundance and emotional resilience becomes available when we stop fighting. Oh, please listen to this. It becomes available when we stop fighting what was never asking for our permission in the first place. There's a moment. And remember, means what it stands for is haven't made up my mind. Noted what you just said, Dragon, but I haven't made up my mind yet. So pause for a second on that statement. Let me read it again. Abundance and emotional resilience become available when we stop fighting what was never asking for our permission in the first place. So that's what we're going to pause on for a second right now. This is crucial before we go any further. What if we took the time today to consider the things in life that happen? This is what a happening is. We call it the shit sometimes, that don't ask if we're okay with it first. Think about all the things that occur in your life that don't require your approval. There's a lot of them. How about your heart beating right now? How about your breath? Until I mentioned that, they weren't asking you. So there's an old saying that goes, and I mentioned this before, that life sucks and then you die. In many ways, if you have any sort of a stoic strain of DNA in you, it's true. Life does suck and then you die, if you want to call it that. But what that's saying is that for the most part, life is challenging. I don't know about the word suck, but when we say life sucks and then we die, it's kind of true, but we get to reframe what that means. But it's also dark. It's a little dark to say that. And honestly, it feeds the mindset that keeps people in things like fear, overwhelm, and stuck in some sort of a way of, we'll call it toxic productivity. What do you think of that word? Toxic, or those words, toxic productivity. Does anybody here ever catch themselves involved in some toxic productivity? What does that mean to you? To me, when I say toxic productivity, it means doing things, thinking that that they're important, right? Doing things that are toxic. It's like self-sabotage. It's almost masochistic. Do you ever catch yourself doing that? But if we allow ourselves to change the frame of all of this, instead of saying shit happens and we call it life happens, and then you die, well, because we do die, something just fascinating occurs in that moment. And what happens in that moment is the judgment drops. The assessment of how well you've done, what your projection is. The judgment drops, the meaning loosens, and we begin to see movement instead of punishment. I don't know about you, but I catch myself punishing myself. Let me read that again. Toxic productivity. That's what toxic productivity means to the House of Flow. It means doing shit we prioritize because of hidden triggers. That's the conditioning, the program that is not ours. We've acquired it from mother, father, teacher, preacher, and from society and from our life experience thus far. Our dots that have connected us to this dot triggers something that we subconsciously labeled, there's the meaning, as needful, right? So if you are involved in this toxic productivity and you don't know it, it's because, just like House of Flow said, it's been labeled by you as needful, as important, as part of it, as you. Do you know that sometimes we are in this state where we're going to say, I'm going to just be authentically myself. And even in that moment, the authentic version of ourselves is toxic. And we don't even know it, because as long as we're being authentic and true to ourselves, then it's okay, right? Well, only if you just turn a blind eye to it. That's great. So the real issue is not that things happen. The issue is what we do after they happen. If you look at the dichotomy of control, what do we control? We don't control the happening. We control our response to it, our perception and our response to it. So let's consider some things that happen without running themselves by you first, just to make sure that we're all clear on that. So you guys notice the thing about cuts, right? Cuts heal without our help and without our permission. Eyes see, noses breathe. Now you could consciously decide to breathe right now. You could take command of your breath, but before that, it had nothing to do with you, right? Hearts beat. And here's the real important distinction. Thoughts think. Think about that for a second. Whether you like it or not, your brain does what it's supposed to do. It thinks. So wait a second on that. The brain thinks without my consultation first. What does that say about your thoughts? If you have a thought right now and you don't know that that is just your brain doing something, and you can just switch into observation mode and say, oh, hello, brain, thinking. You know, the Buddhists very often will just say thinking. And it's that's their way of separating themselves as a participant and taking ownership of thoughts and just saying, oh, that's my brain, just like my heart beats and my nose breathes and my eyes see. That's my brain thinking. Do you know that your thoughts are a happening? Meaning they don't ask you what you think before they think. So isn't it interesting to just acknowledge that sometimes when we have a thought and it takes command and it hijacks us, it doesn't need to happen. Do you know that your brain processes what, 40 to 70,000 thoughts a day? And we somehow just find our way to like grab onto one or two of them and make a day out of it? So from a neuroscience and psychology perspective, which I love, these are automatic processes, meaning they happen automatically. Self-regulating systems they're designed for a reason. They have a purpose. They're designed for well-being and survival. Do you know that your body is working on things to help you survive right now, like breathing, without asking you? So all I'm doing is giving you the opportunity to separate yourself from trying to control things that you don't control. So the sun rises, tides shift, and here's another one. Clouds pass, and we could even say that apples fall. Those are happenings. But there's also another one to throw in there. People gossip and criticize. Like you might think that you're attracting stuff like that right now, but that's a happening. Just like the thoughts, just like the heartbeat, the eyes, the apples falling. So all of those things are happening without your okay or assistance. So that's what's funny about when we try to control happenings. They don't need our assistance. We kind of want to control them, don't we? So this brings us to an important distinction, and I want to share something with you first. Let me first lend some clarity, because we always want to choose clarity. That's our community. Clarity before action. So when some of you are signing up for our Substack Signal newsletter that comes every day, that's about, in a small fashion, but very powerful, giving clarity to yourself as a present before you take action. I think that we make that mistake. Make Sense Academy is where we do the real work. People that want to work directly with me at a cost that's less than what you'll spend on food today per month. That's what that's for. It's about clarity before action. So we're defining happening, and it's an occurrence that takes place without your say or contribution. Weather changes, time passes, your heart beats, someone has an opinion, a delay shows up. That's a happening as well. Anybody here ever get into like inconvenient traffic? That happened to me yesterday. I drove 10 hours to drive my son back to school, and I got in some traffic and I got upset about it. Isn't that funny? Because just like the sun, traffic rises as well, doesn't it? A delay shows up, a loss occurs. There's a tough one sometimes. A misunderstanding unfolds. I don't know how to explain this, but I like when misunderstandings unfold, because I know that I don't control it, and I look at it as an opportunity to initiate some of my stuff. Okay, so this sheds light on the common concept and conversation when we go up to somebody and say, "What's happening? How do you answer that question? We say, what's happening? And although this question is typically asking the person what's going on in their life, just take a moment there to ask yourself how you would answer that question, what's happening? And note the difference between what they explain and when it is referring to um, as something that is either within their control or what's happening without their say so, right? That's interesting. So if I say what's happening, you'll probably tell me what's going on in your life. And very often say, oh man, things are tough, things are good, but I'm excited about this. Very, very rarely when I say what's happening, do you define the present moment. So the next time somebody asks you what's happening, you don't have to do this, but you're allowed to now that you know about it, right? You can't unsee something once you see it. You're allowed to just tell them how you feel right now, which is how we started this conversation. What's happening, JC? Well, at the moment, I'm feeling a sense of gratitude, and the fog and my fatigue have lifted because I'm here in the pocket with my friends and I'm talking about something that I'm very passionate about and I'm grateful. But if I didn't think like that and somebody says, what's happening? I might just give them the whole deal. Right. And typically, I don't know, for whatever reason, we like to default to the victim status and explain it that way. So what's interesting about happenings in general is that they're all neutral. This is really, really cool. When a happening happens, the things that we don't control, that don't ask us for permission or ask for our contribution, they're neutral until we enter them and participate with them. There's your choice. The whole concept of cognitive distancing, which is to also distance yourself from the stimulus. Viktor Frankl's work in A Man's Search for Meaning, one of the greatest books ever, he just talks about the fact that the whole game is won in between the stimulus and your response. And if you don't space yourself and give yourself time, which is what the interface response system teaches people masterfully, your response will be your knee-jerk reflex. Okay? So what we're saying here is that a happening that we have no say over is neutral, meaning it doesn't have a meaning yet until you give it a meaning. So do you see the value in saying, noted, don't know what I think about it yet. Don't know if I'm going to even give you what I think about it yet. Now, this might seem like arduous, but you get good at it. The people in the Make Sense Academy do this on the fly. So this is where emotional mismanagement or management becomes a problem. So I think one of the top most, I got this from a mentor of mine. What's the true cause of disease in our world? I call it emotional mismanagement. Peel back all problems to their core, and I believe that it is emotional mismanagement. So what we're talking about here is reclaiming control as the dominant force and the shot caller to your emotional management. But it's going to require that you change the way you look at things. That's the work. So participation doesn't always need to look dramatic, by the way. What we're saying is you don't have to refrain from participating and becoming involved in happenings, but it doesn't always have to look dramatic, does it? Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes we could just have an opinion and hold it inside. I could be just replaying a moment or worrying, right? Sometimes people are worried and you don't even know they're worried. It's when we add meaning to it. Okay. Engaging in negative self-talk or carrying concern throughout the day. Now, I'm not going to tell you that I never carry concern throughout the day, but I am going to tell you that I'm conscious of it and I look to catch myself drifting into that position. And it's only when I catch my drift that I create the space to shift. Isn't that fun? So from a nervous system regulation standpoint, this is where self-regulation collapses when we don't space it. And decision fatigue sets in. Do you know what decision fatigue is? Is when you get to that place where you just go, I don't know. I don't even know. Hey, what's wrong? You seem upset. I don't know. Oh my God, I'm having an anxiety attack. Oh, what triggered it? I don't know. There's so many things it could be that we get decision fatigue. And that's about regulating your nervous system. So it's the moment that you lend your 2 cents to something without having somebody ask you to. See, a happening happens and it's not saying, what do you think about this? You think that it's asking you that, but it's not asking you for your 2 cents, right? Or your emotional attachment, or your need to be right, or control something that's uncontrollable. You've heard me say it before, but trying to control something that's uncontrollable is the same thing as trying to drink water with a fork, or teach a goldfish to climb a tree, or build an airplane in the sky. It's impossible. And we spend a lot of time trying to do the impossible. So we don't suffer because something has happened, my friends. We suffer because we choose to. Now, just off the cuff, in Buddhism, they talk about the story of the 2 arrows. And remember that the first arrow that gets shot at us is the one we don't control. The second arrow, however, is the one we pull back and shoot ourselves in the foot. That's our response or our reaction. We're looking to control that. So we don't suffer because something happened. We suffer because we choose to suffer. We suffer because we choose to participate in the happening. If someone offers you a gift, taking in mind that that might be like some sort of unsolicited criticism, which means somebody telling you something about you without you asking for it, that's a happening. If you don't receive the gift, if I offer you a gift and you don't receive it, who does the gift belong to? Well, newsflash, them. The gift givers, the universe, all of those things that offer us things, happenings that we didn't ask for, they own them until the moment that you receive them. So you see why this is so important. Can you see how our programmed, conditioned mindset that's being programmed primarily by outside forces, mother, father, teacher, preacher, all our life, the society that we're living in, evolution, right? Natural selection, all of that stuff has taught us to accept all gifts and feel like we need to give it meaning and get involved in it. We don't. So when you say, that's also this opportunity for you to remember you don't need to have an opinion about stuff. I don't think it's possible for you to like not have a thought and a feeling and an opinion, but you can catch yourself doing that. And remember, your thoughts, opinions, and feelings are happenings as well. You can catch yourself doing that and just on those too. You can just everything. Here's an important nuance that builds emotional intelligence and inner peace. There's a big difference between evaluating a happening and absorbing it, isn't there? Evaluating is the active process of neutral awareness. If I'm just observing something or someone and its neutralness, that's called neutral awareness. I'm aware of its neutralness, meaning I don't have to know what it is. I don't have to give it meaning. I don't have to say, I'm going to take that on today. I might feel and think that I do, but I know those are happenings as well. Absorbing it is when we take emotional ownership of it. And that's what we're looking to stop. So here's an important distinction. Sometimes things aren't happening for you. They're just happening. Now, I've learned that's a huge shift. If I think that things are happening to me, I've learned to say, well, maybe they're happening for me. Everything happens for a reason. So listen to this statement. Take it to the next level. Sometimes things aren't happening for you or to you. They're just happening. Isn't that fun to recognize that a happening is happening whether you notice it or not? It's when you notice it and you give it meaning and you absorb it emotionally that you get involved. Maybe it's just a happening. Do you know that there's something happening outside of your home or your car or your workplace right now, outside of your train of thought? You have this amazing sense making machine and perception gathering machine, but it's not picking up everything. There's a whole bunch of things happening right now without you knowing it. So why do we not have to have opinions about those, only the ones that we perceive? Interesting game to play, right? Sometimes things aren't happening they're for you or to you, they're just happening. And this alone provides a powerful shift for us today. So think about this. Clouds up in the sky, what do clouds do? They pass on by. They're not the sky. If you're looking at the sky and you see clouds, the clouds are not the sky. The clouds are things in the sky that are passing on by. So what's the analogy there? Thoughts, comments, events, disruptions, those are clouds. We're looking at it that way. Maybe I can look at thoughts, comments, and events and disruptions, letdowns, setbacks, criticism, inconveniences. I'm going to choose to look at those as clouds right now. They move and they pass on by, just like a wave comes to a peak and it recedes on the shoreline. They pass unless we decide to become them. And the moment that we think that the clouds are the sky, we become them. So this is where cognitive reframing becomes a daily habit rather than a concept. So just making this distinction right now, if you're enjoying it, it doesn't mean that everything changes. This is a habit that we have to practice. So when we teach in the Make Sense Academy, when you read my book, you'll learn the interface response system, but it's not until you put it in praction, which means practice the action step of doing it every day, that you start to get good at it. But it's something that you have to practice every day. And saying, is the way that you give yourself a chance to practice. So I told you before that I'm fascinated with all human behavior, even things that are an attack against me or a tough time or anything like that. Why? Because it's an opportunity for me to practice this stuff. So this is where cognitive reframing comes into place. So remember this, one of the core tenets of our community and our Make Sense Academy is this. If you change the way you look at things, this is Wayne Dyer. If you change the way you look at things, the things that you look at begin to change. So here's one of the most valuable tools that you'll learn from my book and in the Make Sense Academy. One of the most powerful tools, and that's called the sorting filter. So this is about rewiring your mind and transforming your life. And it's something I call the sorting filter. And it's a simple but profound way to pre-qualify. So this is the tool. You could understand this, but still your programmed conditioned response responds before you even know it. You just have to learn how to catch the feeling and the thought of it and question it and dispute it. So it's simple but profound, and it's a way to pre-qualify a happening before it hijacks your energy, focus, or emotional bandwidth. So that's what this is. It's a tool that you arm yourself with, just like awareness itself, that changes things forever. And it's a quality control system. Do you have a quality control system? I'm not talking about your opinions. Do you have a quality control? Because sometimes our opinions get in the way of a breakthrough, don't they? I'm talking about something that lets everything come into your field of perception, but a system to run it through something to determine if it gets your attention or not. That's what the sorting filter is, and we teach people how to do that. So we program the sorting filter, just to give you an idea, to ask questions like this. Does this deserve my attention? Do I want to devote some of my freedom to this? Does this serve the present moment? Does this require my response? Is this something that I should engage in, or a cloud to let pass by? Imagine if you answered asked those questions. I told you my favorite question to ask is, what else might be true? And that's how I look at the cloud of my thoughts. So from a peak performance and well-being perspective, most exhaustion that we experience doesn't come from life itself. It comes from poor filtering. So my book isn't about controlling life, by the way. It's not about controlling life itself. It's about reclaiming the only thing that we control, and that is our perception and our response to life. For people who want practical tools, maybe actionable steps and strategies and intentional daily living, I teach a whole daily routine in the book as well. The whole idea is to arm and equip people with control and clarity before the world gets noisy. Because the world's noisy because it's full of happenings. The world is a happening. And it's not asking you for permission. So at its core, this stuff teaches you how to slow the moment down just enough to choose wisely and to live with awareness instead of reaction, and choose clarity, like I said, before action. And why? Because happenings are going to continue to happen. They're happening right now, whether you're aware of them or not. As soon as you take yourself away from this conversation and devote your focus and attention elsewhere, you're going to start noticing happenings. What are you going to do with that? Because that's where freedom lives. Make sense? So I love and appreciate you all. If you're looking and you're ready, if you realize what I realize about you is that you're highly capable, but just scattered, maybe underperforming, consider checking out the Make Sense Academy. I mean, it's literally, I think, $37 a month for the standard, membership, which gets live masterminds, and you learn everything and practice the interface response system, as well as the inner circle version of it, which is $99 a month or $97 a month. And that's where we spend a lot of time together. And those people are just expanding extraordinarily. But we offer a 7-day free trial. So go check it out and get the hell out if you don't like it. Love and appreciate you all. Thanks for being here. And we'll see you next time. Have an amazing day.
Makes sense.